What happens when? It's 11:59 p.m. The city is asleep. Streetlights glow across empty roads. Airplanes cruise quietly overhead. Millions of people lie in bed, completely unaware that their world is about to change forever. Then the clock strikes midnight, and gravity reverses. In an instant, everything not bolted down begins accelerating toward the sky. Cars tear away from the pavement. Trees rip from the ground. People sleeping in their beds are slammed into their ceilings. Thousands of airplanes suddenly lose control. And above it all, something even more terrifying begins to happen. The atmosphere itself begins to fall away from Earth. Within minutes, the familiar world we've known for thousands of years becomes unrecognizable. But here's the strange part. Humanity might not go extinct, because after 12 hours, gravity flips back again. And if that cycle continued forever, our entire civilization would be forced to evolve around a universe where up and down switch places twice every day. So what would actually happen if gravity reversed every 12 hours? Would we survive? Or would Earth become completely uninhabitable? Let's find out. The moment gravity reverses, most people picture themselves being launched straight into space. But that's not actually what happens. At least not immediately. Because everything on Earth is already moving with the planet. The ground, the buildings, the atmosphere. And you are all traveling together at thousands of kilometers per hour as Earth spins through space. So when gravity suddenly flips, you're not instantly shot into the cosmos. Instead, you're violently pulled away from whatever was holding you down. If you're outside, that's a disaster. Anyone walking down a street would suddenly begin accelerating upward. At first, it might feel like the strongest roller coaster ever created. Then reality sets in. Within seconds, people are smashing into streetlights, power lines, building facades, and anything else in their path. Those who happen to be indoors fare slightly better. Beds become lifeboats. Floors become ceilings. Anyone inside a sturdy building might survive the initial reversal by crashing into the structure above them. But cities themselves wouldn't be so lucky. Cars parked on roads would rise into the air like metallic hailstones. Traffic lights, signs, loose debris, and construction equipment would become deadly projectiles. Every highway on Earth would transform into a chaotic storm of flying metal. And then there are the airplanes. Thousands of aircraft are in the sky at any given moment. Pilots train for engine failures, severe turbulence, and emergency landings. They do not train for gravity, suddenly pulling in the opposite direction. Passengers would be thrown against cabin ceilings. Cargo could break loose. Aircraft systems designed around normal gravity would struggle to function as intended. Around the world, countless flights would instantly become emergencies. Millions, even billions of lives could be lost. But even all this chaos is just the beginning. Because the most important thing on Earth isn't cars, buildings, or airplanes. It's the thin layer of air surrounding the planet. And gravity has just started pulling that upward too. For the first few seconds, humanity's biggest concern would be surviving the chaos around them. But after that, a much larger problem emerges. The air itself, Earth's atmosphere, is held in place by gravity. The reason you can breathe right now is that trillions of tons of air are being pulled toward the planet's surface. Remove that force, or in this case, reverse it, and the atmosphere begins behaving in ways no human has ever experienced. The moment gravity flips, the air nearest to the ground starts accelerating upward. Not all at once, not like a giant explosion, but enough to create unimaginable winds as the atmosphere attempts to redistribute itself. Across the globe, hurricane-force gusts would appear with little warning. Trees would be torn from the earth. Buildings already damaged by the initial reversal would face a second assault from violent air currents. Then the weather itself starts breaking. Clouds no longer know where they're supposed to be. Rain begins falling upward. Fog lifts from valleys like ghosts escaping the planet. Entire storm systems start stretching toward the sky. Imagine looking outside and seeing a thunderstorm slowly rising away from Earth instead of descending toward it. The world would feel wrong on a fundamental level. Even breathing becomes difficult. As air is pulled away from the surface, atmospheric pressure begins to drop. The higher you go above sea level, the thinner the air becomes. Now imagine that process happening everywhere. People would experience dizziness, confusion, shortness of breath. In some regions, oxygen level could fall low enough to become life-threatening. And just when it seems like conditions couldn't get any worse, the oceans begin to respond. Because, unlike buildings, trees, or even the atmosphere, nothing on Earth is more affected by gravity than billions of tons of water. And when gravity reverses, the oceans don't stay where they are. If gravity can pull entire weather systems upward, then there's one question we have to ask. What happens to the oceans? At first, the answer seems obvious. The water rises. But the reality would be far more violent. Earth's oceans contain over 1 billion cubic kilometers of water. Right now, gravity keeps all of it pressed against the planet's surface. The moment that force reverses, the oceans begin fighting to move in a completely different direction. The surface of the water would start lifting first, the entire waves, then entire sections of ocean. Across coastlines around the world, water would surge upward with unimaginable force. Ports would be destroyed within minutes. Ships would be ripped from harbors and thrown into the sky. Massive walls of water would rise where coastlines once existed. Some regions might experience floods unlike anything in recorded history. Others could witness something even stranger. The sea is retreating. As enormous volumes of water are pulled away from Earth's surface, parts of the ocean floor could become temporarily exposed. Ancient shipwrecks, deep trenches, entire underwater landscapes hidden for millions of years, all revealed beneath a sky filled with rising oceans. And because gravity reverses every 12 hours, the destruction never truly ends. Just as the water begins settling into its new position, gravity flips again. Now, every suspended mass of water starts falling back toward Earth. The result wouldn't be a normal tide. It would be a planetary-scale impact. Gigantic waves would crash across continents. Coastal cities would be repeatedly devastated. Infrastructure would never have enough time to recover before the next cycle began. Over and over, day after day, year after year. Eventually, maps would become meaningless. The coastlines we know today will be erased by a world trapped in a permanent cycle of rising and falling oceans. At this point, it sounds like humanity has no chance of survival. But history has shown something remarkable. Humans are incredibly good at adapting to impossible situations. And if gravity reversed every 12 hours, we wouldn't just try to survive. We would redesign civilization itself. At first glance, a world where gravity reverses every 12 hours seems impossible to survive. And for millions of people, the first few days would likely be catastrophic. Assuming you survive, of course. But humanity has one advantage no other species possesses. We don't just adapt to our environment, we redesigned it. The first generation to survive repeated gravity reversals would quickly learn a simple lesson. Nothing could be left unsecured. Buildings would no longer have a floor and a ceiling. They would have 2 floors, 2 ceilings, and 2 complete living spaces. Every piece of furniture would be anchored. Every appliance is locked into place. Homes would be designed so that when gravity flipped, people could simply continue their day from the opposite side of the room. Entire cities would evolve around this principle. Skyscrapers might resemble enormous capsules, reinforced from both directions. Roads would be enclosed within protective tunnels. Public transportation would rely on systems capable of operating regardless of which way gravity was pulling. Even schools, hospitals, and workplaces would be built with reversal in mind. But architecture is only part of the challenge. Human behavior would change too. Daily life will become synchronized with the gravity cycle. Work schedules might be divided into downtime and uptime. Major construction projects would only take place during certain phases. Travel could be carefully timed around reversals to minimize risk. Children would grow up learning skills that sound absurd to us today. How to move safely during a gravity transition. How to secure yourself before a reversal. How to navigate a building from either direction. To them, it would be as normal as looking both ways before crossing a street. And eventually, humanity would stop viewing gravity reversals as a disaster. They would start viewing them as an opportunity. Engineers would find ways to harness the immense energy created by every transition. Transportation systems could exploit gravity changes to move cargo with incredible efficiency. Entire industries will emerge around technologies that only make sense in a world where up and down are temporary concepts. But as civilization adapts, another question begins to emerge. What kind of society develops when the laws of everyday life change twice a day? Because surviving the reversals is one thing, building a culture around them is something else entirely. After enough generations, people would stop thinking of gravity reversals as a problem. It would simply become a fact of life. Just as we organize our lives around day and night, future civilizations would organize themselves around the gravity cycle. Certain industries would thrive during one gravity phase and shut down during the other. Cities could operate on alternating schedules. Some people work while others sleep, depending entirely on which direction gravity is pulling. The result wouldn't be a civilization constantly struggling against nature. It would be a civilization built around it. A society that sees two worlds every single day. One where the ground is below you, and one where the ground is above. But despite all these adaptations, one terrifying question still remains. We've talked about people. We've talked about cities. We've even talked about oceans. But what about the planet itself? Because Earth was never designed to endure a force this extreme. And over time, the damage would become impossible to ignore. Gravity is one of the few things we never question. Every day of our lives, we trust that when we put something down, it stays down, that the sky stays above us, and that the ground remains beneath our feet. But in a world where gravity reverses every 12 hours, none of those assumptions survives. The very concepts of up and down will become temporary. Architecture would change. Society would change. Life itself would change. Humanity might adapt. It might even thrive. But after generations of living between two directions, will we still see the world the same way? Or will we become something entirely different? A civilization that no longer thinks in terms of above and below. A civilization that sees both as home. And perhaps that's the strangest part of all. The greatest impact of reversing gravity wouldn't be what it does to our planet. It would be what it does to us. Because when the rules of reality change every 12 hours, you don't just build a different world, you become a different species. So the next time you feel gravity holding you firmly to the earth, be grateful, because in another universe, the sky might become the ground before the day is over. So, would you survive in this world or not? Let me know below. And if you want more of these, hit subscribe, like the video, and share. Thanks for watching.